morning, everybody. Thank you so much for having us. That was such a fascinating panel that we just heard right there. I agreed with everything except the fact that New York is the best city in the world. I mean, I do agree, but this morning when I stepped out into the Arctic chill of a brutal Tuesday morning pre-coffee, I wasn't so sure about that. So anyway, we're here today and we're here now and we're in the warm glow of the stage, so it feels very different. Thank you so much to the two of you for joining me this morning. And I'm so thrilled to be moderating this conversation because I believe, as I'm sure you do, it is one of the most important conversations to be having right now. How AI is reshaping our teams, our leadership models, and of course, as a result of that, our collective mental well-being. And as a journalist, I found myself both terrified and intrigued by the AI revolution, because I think that's what we are all calling it now. And I'm particularly pleased to be joined by two people who understand this topic far better than I do. So hopefully we can get some reassurance this morning that it's not all terrifying. So joining me today, we have Dr. Bobbi Wegner. She's the CEO and founder of the coaching platform Groups. She also lectures at Harvard University in industrial organizational psychology and management. Why, that's a mouthful. She's a board member, a renowned international speaker, and the author of the book Raising Feminist Boys, which came out in 2021. So welcome, Bobbi. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
And of course, we also have Tami Rosen, a board member, chief development officer, and the chair of the advisory board of Pagaya, a global fintech innovator. Her career has also spanned leadership roles at Apple, Goldman Sachs. I saw the G, got that bit right. Apple, Goldman Sachs, Atlassian, and Luminar Technologies. So welcome to you too, Tami. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And I'm actually, in the interest of time, let's get straight to it. So Tami, I'm going to start with you. One of the things I know about you is that you've coined this term bionic company. So maybe to kick us off, you can tell us what that means.
Well, thank you all for having me today, and it's great to be here. First, I want to talk about the fact that it is an AI revolution, but it's really a workforce revolution. And bionic companies is really, those are the companies that are really going to succeed in this workforce revolution, because they're going to understand that you're blending speed, efficiency, and scale of AI with human ingenuity, which is creativity, resilience, and just those two things together are more powerful. And I think a lot of companies today are concerned, what's my AI strategy? It's what's my workforce strategy, using AI to leverage that and to become much more powerful and to have that amplifier effect.
That's great, and we will certainly delve into more of that as the conversation goes on. But I'm just curious, kind of to kick us off, what do you think is one human skill that you believe will always trump algorithmic capabilities?
I'm only allowed one.
For now, you can have more later.
Well, I would start with resilience. And I think resilience is something that is uniquely human. We go from sort of having pain and suffering and loss, and we just get stronger. So we go from that to strength, where AI, for the most part, can get more efficient, but it doesn't actually understand how to think about evolving its thinking that way. And I think that's what humans do best. And humans will be able to be that differentiator. If every company has AI, think about this, they're all sharing the same types of technology, that makes them all the same. So what makes them unique is the humans that are leveraging it for what makes them the competitive advantage.
I love that. Bobbi, I'm going to bring you into the conversation.
Sure.
Similar question for you. What do you think is sort of the human quality that will never be erased by AI?
Sure, yeah, that's a big question. And my mind goes to first, like, what are we even talking about here? Like, what is human? And I really go to everything I've researched and I study, and what we're building for is connection and cohesion. So just think in your minds, like, how do you even define that? We talk a lot about connection, we talk a lot about AI, but what does that even mean? Connection is really the stickiness or the interconnection between two entities, right? Two people. You can feel connected at a party to someone. We'll meet tons of people here today. I'm like, I like that person. There's some level of connection. Cohesion is really that at a group level, and it's alignment. There's structure to it. It's a feeling like we're working towards a shared goal. There's clarity. I want to be on this team. Both of those things really, really matter in teams and are highly correlated with high-performing teams. Right, so the way we're working right now is challenging connection and cohesion between, we're going through all these tectonic shifts, right, between AI, distribution, multi-generational workforce, uncertainty, so there's a few things that we really have to come back to. What's like foundational about what do humans really need? We have to remember we're hardwired for connection. We're social by nature. We're tribal beings with suits on, but we're really a pack animal. We kind of forget, right? We have a need for connectedness, for social belonging, and for control in some way. If we feel out of control, we're at risk, right? And we need to be part of the group. And then also, systems are very resistant to change. So think about sledding hills, right? If you're like gonna go sledding down a hill, it's much easier to go down a path that's already laid. Neural pathways work the same way. So once we've done a behavior once and it's laid, that behavior's laid, we just are gonna keep doing it, right? Systems, whether it's individual groups, teams, large organizations, governments, that's why it's hard to make these big changes. So the point is connection cohesion really matters here. There are these things that humans really need that are working against us, and that there's these, we have to be very thoughtful about how we're actually bringing people together, because connection is really like oxygen, and we're stripping it from the way we're working with each other right now, and then we're not feeling in alignment. So the cohesion's dropping, so performance dropping, retention's becoming a problem. I mean, I could talk about this forever, but...
Yeah, and I'm going slightly off script here, so bear with me and tell me if this is a terrible question and you don't want to answer it.
Go. Now I'm intrigued. Go.
One of the things that I've been looking into as a journalist is aversion to AI. And you're talking, about this sledding hill and the pre-laid tracks.
Totally.
So how do we get around that issue of aversion? If AI really is sort of this superpower, which I think we can describe it, if used correctly, then how are we making sure that the people who should be using it are using it and leveraging it to their advantage?
Yeah, so adoption of AI is a behavior, right? There's things that humans do. There's thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, and I'm thinking something, I'm feeling something, I'm doing something, right? I'm thinking something now, you don't really know. You can only guess. I'm feeling something, you don't really know, I can only guess, but you see my behaviors. AI adoption is a behavior that companies are feeling incredibly pressed to be like, go do this thing, but they're neglecting the like sort of psychological, the motivational impact, or things people are like, I'm scared, is this gonna take my job? I don't even know how this is going to like help me here. And then now we're building this into performance reviews, but not addressing any of those underlying thoughts and feelings that are driving the adoption of the behavior. So we're kind of like overly focusing on the behavior without looking at any of the motivational factors. So I think when you think about this, like companies have to be thinking about what do I need people to do here, but also how am I meeting my people where they're at, and it's not a one size fits all.
Yeah, I'd love to jump in there because I think you're absolutely right. But at the end of the day, it's like anything else. It's a change management process.
Totally.
And humans have a difficult time thinking about it. Usually the people that are the fastest swimmers in a change are the ones that have known it the longest, right? Not because they agree 100% with the change. And I think what we have to do is allow for companies to build in the idea that failure is part of success, and that humans and employees have the right to have these small failures, and that they're celebrated so that they can learn. And learning is at that core. So if we take the companies that will be most successful, or those bionic companies, they're gonna be building learning as a core capability into their company, and that agility. The agility to make a mistake, pick yourself up, and then learn from that mistake. And I think that will be the key for companies to be successful, frankly.
And this is a question to either of you, actually. I love this idea of being comfortable with failure and modeling that as well. So where does that psychological safety come from? How do you create that? Does that have to come from the top, or how does that work?
Well, I would say it's both sides, but I've seen a lot of companies use what they used to call hackathons, maybe they're AI-thons now, and people can go out and try and experiment with different ways to improve the work they're doing using that technology. And then there also should be showing those failures when they don't work. And that can be at town halls, that can be in conversations with teams, and saying, look, that didn't work, but what did you learn from it? And if you could have that conversation, you could then actually encourage people around you to feel comfortable with making a mistake. We're not good at that. Like, if you're in school, what's the outcome? To get an A. If you get an A-, you feel you made a mistake and you didn't succeed. And that's something we have to retrain in our schools and how we work, because it's not one answer anymore.
And you actually think that starts at the sort of elementary education level. Is that what you're saying?
100%. Because we're taught that the answers are at the back of the book, and if you knew it there, you wouldn't actually answer it. You'd go to the back of the book and get the answer, and you wouldn't learn. And it's interesting, my son said to me recently that he's concerned about AI dumbing people down. Because they're going to...
How old is your son?
He's 22 today.
Okay. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Justin. And he really believes that because he feels that, people will rely on the answer they're getting from AI like they're relying on the answer at the end of the book as right. And that might not be right. We don't know where the source of that data is or how it was manipulated or what made sense for that outcome. And so he's actually trying to make sure he's learning how to do those things, not just relying on AI. And I have a little bee in the bonnet with companies today that are starting to cut their junior programs and not hire junior people into the workforce and think that the organization is going to look like a diamond versus a pyramid. I think it's wrong because those people are the digital natives. They understand how to work with technology, and they will be the ones to help you find those solutions that will be best for your companies. So anybody out there, stop cutting your junior talent and start hiring them. And if you noticed recently in the papers, there's 2 companies that just came out saying that they're putting a huge emphasis on their intern programs and doubling down on analysts. They're smart because they'll get the war for talent really quickly if everybody's cutting them.
And ultimately, that's what it's all about, the war for talent, right? Yeah, Bobbi.
Yeah, I was going to add something here. So I think when we think about psychological safety, this is one of these terms, too, that we throw around without actually... so just think, what is that, right? It's really failure, like willingness to take risk without fear of shame or judgment. So on one hand, we're like, go try this new tool, do the thing. And we're not actually setting up our teams and systems. So we're putting the onus on the individual, go take this risk, but the company's not taking any responsibility for creating a culture of psychological safety, right? And psychological safety often gets filed as sort of like a DEI thing. We're like, oh, don't talk about that right now. Let's just like put that over here. Versus like, no, that's actually foundational to like high-performing, high-cohesion teams. It comes back to connection and cohesion. So like, how is the company building structures in place to build like a sense of belonging, a sense of safety, so you're willing to take risks and put big ideas on the table or try new things. But on the other hand, we're more disconnected, we're not cohesive right now, but we're saying we gotta be innovative. No one's going to try new things when you're feeling disconnected. It's not safe. You're putting yourself at risk. It's not smart, actually. Yeah. So like, what's the company doing, and then how are you creating up a culture that it actually facilitates psychological safety and innovation?
Yeah, it's fascinating. I do think that we can open it to the audience for questions if anyone has a burning question. But as you're thinking, I will just ask one more quick question of you. Tami, you kind of alluded to this when you were talking about juniors and these graduate training schemes that are so critical to developing not only the skills that we're talking about, but also critical thinking, just kind of organizational knowledge, et cetera. More kind of generally, the hiring HR function, is it evolving adequately considering the way in which AI is changing the landscape?
Well, the quick answer would be not as fast as it needs to, and I do think that the role of the CHRO is going to change significantly to be more about human digital resources, not just human resources, and how those things work together. I do think it's going to be one of the key roles of the future and should be started now. And the idea that your talent and your workforce is going to be your competitive edge, you need to have somebody who's thinking that, believing that, and being that people strategist for this technology and workforce revolution. So yes, absolutely, full stop. We need to really double down on that role and expand it to have the combination of people and technology.
And so much of the hiring process in so many organizations is almost fully automated right now, right?
I don't know about that.
I mean, that's what I've heard in the media industry, for example.
Do we believe everything we read?
Absolutely not. If there's one takeaway from this panel, do not believe everything you read. But that's a really...
I actually think that most companies are using AI in recruiting in bits in different places, but maybe not across the board. And I actually worry that people will rely too much on using AI to select talent because there's so many underlying issues with the data and the biases. And we all know if you take names off resumes, that doesn't help you hire more diversity, right? So we have to be very careful in how we're using those tools, and we're not just going to psychological testing or culture testing, which is a AK word to say, look like me, and we need to be very careful that we don't fully automate it and just use it as something that AI is going to select my next hires.
Generally speaking, do you think that we are getting better at controlling bias in AI? Is the trajectory promising, or?
Well, look, I think everybody's worried about efficiencies, compute power, and cost. Nobody's asking about questions about the data that underlyingly is still flawed. So I'm concerned.
Okay. I actually don't know if I am taking questions from the audience, but if anyone has one, nothing's stopping me from taking it. So if anyone does, otherwise I have plenty more, but we do have one here. Maybe we could get a mic. Is that okay? I feel like I've broken all the rules here by involving the audience.
Going rogue all over the place.
I love that.
Thanks. Bobbi, you said something in your opening response about people wondering whether this is even good for them. And I find what I see a lot of times is businesses throwing Copilot or whatever out on people's desks and giving them a little training, say, go do something with it. That seems so backward to me from like a technology standpoint. Usually you want to ask, what's the problem you're trying to solve, right? So if you went to people and said, what is the one thing you hate doing the most about your job and you'd like to make go away? I mean, that does open up the possibility that it will be something the chatbot can't fix, but that's okay, right? I mean, I think it's so odd to me that this idea, throw it on people's desks, have them figure out how to come up with something to do is really backwards when I think most of us have things in our job we'd love to automate. And why don't we start with that? So how do we approach that kind of weird thing going on?
Take it, sometimes we get, so focused on the workplace, but think about like learning in anything. If you want your kid to use the potty, if you want to, train, it doesn't matter. It's like there's a will and there's a skill part of this. And so you want to be thinking about this with AI too, which is like, how can this support you in what you're already doing? Do you even understand the capability? So there's an education part. How much do you know about this? Like, what do you even know your tools are? And then how do you feel about it? That feelings part is like definitely not part of this conversation, most organizations, but like where they are and their readiness for change or adoption really matters here. So as a psychologist, if you're doing coaching with anybody, you're assessing readiness for change. Are you in pre-contemplative, are you contemplative, are you ready to take action? All managers should know this. Like, where is someone here? And then how can I help meet them where they're at, and then give them the skills to actually like move the needle down, and then measure, is it working, right? It's not rocket science. Psychology is not rocket science, but it is just kind of like using it in the everyday in a more clear way.
I would just add that I agree with you. You can't just give people tools and say, figure it out. You have to have some sort of structure around it. And I do like the companies that sit with people and say, create an agent for your job that'll help you augment what you're doing. And then let's talk about it, let's share it, let's talk about what worked and what didn't work. Or they're doing some sort of group discussions around it. The problem with training AI is that as soon as you're trained, you have to be retrained. So I'm not a big believer that we create these massive training programs on how to use AI, because it'll be so short-lived. But I do think you have to have an experimentation culture and that ability to show that it's okay to get it wrong and fail.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. That was a great question. And I think that is just about all we have time for. So thank you to you two. And I so look forward to continuing the conversation today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.